It started with a fight that was never supposed to happen. Inside New York City's Rikers Island jail, alarms blared through the cold concrete halls as inmates shouted and guards rushed in. The fight had broken out between two rival gangs, but this one felt different. The punches, the screams, the chaos, it was all too perfectly timed, too organized. And in the middle of it all, one guard wasn't breaking it up. He was watching. That guard's name was Officer Luis Morales, and that moment would change everything about Rikers Island. Because Morales wasn't just any officer. He had quietly crossed the line between law and crime. The same man who once wore a uniform to keep order was now taking orders from the very gangs he swore to control. As sirens wailed, Morales slipped a small black phone from his vest pocket and sent a quick text. "It's done," he wrote. That single message set off a chain reaction that would eventually bring the FBI straight into the heart of New York's most feared jail. But how did a correctional officer turn into a gang member? How did Rikers Island, a place meant to keep criminals locked away, become a base for organized crime? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. Years earlier, Morales had been a rookie. Fresh out of academy training, full of hope, he believed he could make a difference. But Rikers wasn't like what he saw in training videos. It was overcrowded, violent, and full of fear. The gangs ruled more than the guards did. Every shift was survival. At first, Morales kept his head down, but soon he saw how things really worked. Some officers made extra cash by helping inmates, smuggling in cigarettes, cell phones, and drugs. It started small, then grew big. Everyone knew it happened, but no one talked. Silence was part of the job.
One day, Morales was offered an envelope, $2,000 in cash. "Just pass a bag during night shift," an inmate whispered. It seemed harmless, easy money. No one would notice. He took it. That was his first deal, his first step down a dark road. Months later, Morales wasn't just helping inmates, he was protecting them. He was part of their crew. The Bloods gang called him Officer Red, and he liked the power that came with it. They trusted him, and he trusted them more than his own co-workers. Behind bars, the gang ran everything: drugs, weapons, even messages to the streets. Morales became their inside man, sneaking contraband through staff entrances and covering up attacks on rival inmates. Every favor he did pulled him deeper into their control. Meanwhile, the violence inside Rikers was getting worse. Inmates with brand new phones were posting videos online, showing drugs, weapons, and even parties inside cells. News outlets started asking questions. The Department of Correction promised an investigation, but it was too late. When one of the videos leaked to the media, it showed something shocking: a correctional officer handing a package to an inmate. The image was blurry, but investigators noticed the officer's build: tall, stocky, with a small tattoo on his wrist. That tattoo matched Morales. The FBI got involved next. They had been watching Rikers for months, tracking calls, tracing cash transfers, and building a federal case under the RICO Act, a law used against gangs and organized crime. The idea that prison guards could be part of a gang was unbelievable, but the evidence was piling up fast.
Then came the night that blew everything open. Morales received a text from an inmate contact. New shipment in, same plan as before. But this time, the FBI was already listening. They had tapped the phone, traced the payments, and set up cameras at the staff entrance. When Morales arrived for his shift, he didn't know he was walking straight into a trap. He opened his locker, where the bag was waiting, full of smuggle Suboxone strips and phones. As he turned around, a dozen agents in tactical vests stormed in, shouting, "Hands up, federal agents." For a moment, everything froze. The loud hum of the fluorescent lights echoed through the room. Morales dropped the bag, his face pale. He looked around at his co-workers, some shocked, some silent. He knew this wasn't just about him. He was only the first piece in a much bigger puzzle. As the agents led him out in handcuffs, Morales whispered, "You have no idea how deep it goes." The truth was about to explode, and Rikers Island would never be the same again.
The metal door slammed shut behind Officer Morales. The echo rang through the hallway like a final warning. For the first time, he wasn't holding the keys. He was on the other side of the bars. Agents led him to a small, windowless room inside the federal building in Manhattan. A single light hung over the table. 2 FBI agents sat across from him, calm but firm. One slid a folder forward. Inside were photographs, text messages, and wire transfer receipts. The evidence was impossible to deny. "Luis Morales," the older agent said, "you've been working with the Bloods gang inside Rikers Island. We have enough to charge you under RICO. You could be looking at 20 years. Morales didn't speak. His hands trembled slightly. The badge he once wore with pride was now sitting in a plastic bag across the table. He finally asked, "What do you want from me?" The younger agent leaned forward. "Names," he said. "We know you're not the only one. We want everyone involved, officers, inmates, suppliers. You help us, and maybe you walk out of here someday." For a long moment, Morales stared at the folder. He thought of his wife, his 2 kids, and the years of dirty money he couldn't explain. He knew the truth. The operation inside Rikers went deeper than anyone on the outside imagined. Guards, nurses, even supervisors were part of it. Everyone had a role. Everyone was afraid to speak. He took a deep breath. "You're right," he said quietly. "It's not just me." That was the moment the walls of Rikers began to crack. The next morning, news broke that a correctional officer had been arrested in a federal sting. The headlines were everywhere. FBI investigates Rikers Island officers in massive RICO case. Inside the jail, panic spread fast. Inmates whispered about who would be next. Some guards started calling in sick, afraid of being questioned. Morales was moved to a safe facility under witness protection inside the federal system. He began giving details, how he was recruited, who supplied the drugs, and which officers were smuggling contraband. Every name he gave led to another. He told them about Officer Daniels, who smuggled in phones hidden inside food deliveries. He mentioned Sergeant Hill, who arranged blind spots in camera coverage during drug drops. And he revealed the most dangerous connection, a gang leader named Rico Wallace, who ran the Bloods' inside network from Cell Block D. Rico had money, influence, and a way of getting whatever he wanted. He controlled guards through fear and loyalty. He paid them thousands each month, sometimes in cash, sometimes through relatives outside the prison. If anyone refused, word spread that they'd be handled by inmates loyal to the gang. The FBI set up a hidden operation inside Rikers. They placed microphones in the guard locker rooms, traced cash apps, and monitored phone activity from the outside. Within weeks, they had enough evidence to start rounding people up. But inside Rikers, the tension was building. Guards whispered that someone was talking. One night, a correctional officer found a note taped to his locker. It read, "We know what you did. Stay quiet or your family won't be safe." Fear spread through the staff. Some quit. Others deleted messages, burned papers, and denied everything.
Meanwhile, Morales sat in his cell, waiting for updates. He had traded his silence for protection, but protection inside the system was never guaranteed. One evening, a guard walked past his door and whispered, "Snitches don't live long in this business." Then the guard smiled and walked away. Morales couldn't sleep after that. Every sound in the hallway made him jump. He began to realize something chilling. The very officers he was testifying against still had reach, even outside Rikers. A week later, federal agents prepared for what they called Operation Iron Gate. At exactly 4 a.m., teams raided multiple homes across New York City and Long Island. They arrested more than 20 correctional officers and dozens of gang-connected inmates. The list included Morales' old friends, his supervisors, and even one deputy warden. The news hit the city like a bomb. Rikers Island was no longer just a jail. It was a crime scene. The headlines called it one of the biggest corruption cases in U.S. prison history. But for Morales, the nightmare wasn't over. A month before the trial, an anonymous letter reached his wife's mailbox. It read, "Tell your husband to keep his mouth shut or you'll both end up on the news for the wrong reasons." That was when the FBI realized they had a leak. Someone inside law enforcement was feeding information to the gang. And the next person on their list was another officer still working inside Rikers.
Rain poured over New York City the night the FBI learned the truth. Someone inside their own team was leaking information back to Rikers Island. Every name Morales gave was ending up in the wrong hands. Witnesses were being threatened. Officers who agreed to testify suddenly changed their minds. The operation was falling apart. Agent Daniels, the lead investigator, sat in his office staring at the caseboard filled with photos, arrows, and phone records. He knew one thing: the corruption wasn't over, and it simply moved deeper underground. He ordered full surveillance on every active correctional officer still working at Rikers. For days, the FBI watched from unmarked vans outside the jail, tracking movements, following money trails, and listening to calls. Then, one night, they caught the break they needed. A late-night call between two officers was intercepted. One said, "They're moving Morales next week. The Bloods want him gone before trial." The other replied, "Copy that. I'll make sure the schedule changes." That was it. Solid proof. A sitting correctional officer was still working for the gang. His name was Officer Marcus Reed, one of Morales' old friends. The next morning, Reed reported for his shift like it was any other day. He passed through security, nodded to fellow guards, and headed to the lower corridor where inmate transfers were logged. What he didn't know was that every step he took was being watched through hidden cameras. When Reed opened his locker, he found a note: "Room 3B tonight, one last delivery." He smirked, unaware that FBI agents were waiting just outside.
At 10 p.m., Reed entered room 3D carrying a sealed food bag. Inside were 2 burner phones and a folded letter meant for Rico Wallace, the Bloods' leader. But the moment he placed it down, the door burst open. "Federal agents, don't move!" Reed froze. He dropped the bag, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You set me up," he hissed, staring at the agent in front of him. Agent Daniels stepped forward. "No," he said calmly. "You set yourself up. You thought you could play both sides. Now it's over." Over the next few weeks, arrests spread across the city. More than 35 people, including correctional officers, civilians, and gang leaders, were charged under the RICO Act. The courtroom was packed with reporters when the trial began. The stories that came out were shocking. Drugs hidden inside legal mail, cash exchanged in parking lots, and coded text messages between guards and inmates. Morales took the stand, wearing a simple gray suit. His hands shook as he looked around the courtroom. In the front row, he saw his wife and kids. Behind them sat officers he once called brothers, now glaring at him with hate. He told the jury everything: how it started, how easy it was to get pulled in, and how greed turned guards into criminals. When he finished, the room was silent. Even the judge paused before speaking.
By the end of the trial, most of the defendants were found guilty. Rico Wallace received life in federal prison for running a criminal enterprise from behind bars. Officer Reed got 25 years. Several supervisors lost their jobs, and the city of New York promised major reforms inside Rikers Island. More cameras, better training, and new oversight. But even with the convictions, the scars remained. Months later, Morales was transferred to a witness protection facility under a new name. He worked in silence, living far from the city he once served. Some nights he couldn't sleep, haunted by the sounds of cell doors slamming and the faces of the men he betrayed. Rikers Island changed, but not completely. New rules came, new officers arrived, yet whispers of corruption still floated through the halls. The system had been exposed,
but rebuilding trust would take years. As Morales watched the news one evening, he saw the headline, Rikers Island Reform Bill signed after decade of corruption scandals. He turned off the TV and sat quietly. He had helped take down a powerful criminal network, but at a cost he'd carry forever. He once wore a badge to protect the law. Then he broke it. And in the end, he became the lesson the world couldn't ignore. When the guards join the gangs, nobody is safe. Not even the walls that are meant to keep them in.